Welcome to the Music Lounge. Perry, how are you? I feel
I'm
like
doing.
it's been a minute.
It has been a minute. We had a group of recordings all within a very short period of time, and and
Exactly. Yeah.
and we've had a few weeks off, and now we are back with a very special guest.
They're all
But
special,
before
but Ryan
before
is, yeah.
before I do the introduction, I will say, and I forget to do this all the time, if you're listening to the podcast, please rate, review, like, and share so that we can get more listeners and do more podcasts to entertain you. So today we have Ryan Kroft with us, who is formerly SVP of Live Events and Specials at MTV and is currently head of film and TV at Live Nation Studios. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I wasn't sure there if I was supposed to speak yet or not, but it made me think of all the podcasts I listen to where the guest joins and is like, "Am I allowed to talk?" Anyways, never mind.
You're
We're
allowed
very
to talk
open.
whenever you want.
Exactly.
Thanks.
Exactly. And we were just
Yeah, but
talking
thank you for
about,
having me.
yeah, definitely. We were just talking about how we kind of crossed paths when I was in LA, you were in LA. You've always worked in production, and I think I started in corporate communications, then I went into programming. So you definitely dealt with those teams a lot, I'm sure, especially when I moved to programming with Paul de Benedettus, especially MTV News side of your career, which we will hear all about, right, Perry?
We will. Are you ready to get into this, Ryan?
I'm ready.
Okay, so you had a remarkable 20-year run at MTV, working your way up to SVP position, live events, multi-platform content, but you started as a production assistant. So share what your path to MTV was. What does a PA do? And did you always want to work at MTV and in news specifically?
So, where to start? I grew up in Canada, and I don't know if this is true for you, Andrew, as well, but so I hadn't seen MTV really very much as a teenager. But
Correct.
when we would go on vacation to States, I would see it and I would sort of be ravenous and like trying to sort of absorb as much as I can. And I remember like being in Florida, like in my grandmother's house and watching Spring Break and being like, what is this crazy debauchery? This feels so foreign. But I had no sort of, I think, lens or concept on the idea that I could ever work there or that was within the realm of possibility. I was coming to the end of college and my best friend from childhood was like, oh, I got accepted to USC and I'm moving there for film school. You should come. And I was like, okay. And when I was accepted to journalism school at USC, I went there. But I got to school and within like 3 months was like, I do not want to be a journalist. Like in the traditional sense, I don't want to do hard news. I don't want to work in local news. It's not my vibe. So I started trying to hunt around for internships at entertainment news companies like Entertainment Tonight or Access Hollywood. And somebody suggested to me, I can't remember who now, I owe that person. MTV News has internships. You should go look there. And so in the summer between my first and second years of grad school, I interned at MTV News, and it was
And
a
this
great
was in
experience.
LA, right? This
LA,
was in
yes,
LA.
exactly. In LA, in the LA office for Heather Perry, if you remember her. So I was her intern, and I was a little bit older than all the other interns, so I guess I kind of stood out, and she offered me a job. And I, at the time, was like, drop out of school. This is, you're on your path. You'll take this PA job, and you won't need to finish school. I did not do that. Finished school, and then a year later, lucky enough, she called again and was like, actually, I've sort of held a spot for you. Would you like to come work here? So I started working as a PA in news in 1998. And so, yeah, a long time ago. And it's an interesting time to start working there because it was like they were still doing linear tape to tape editing. So, and I was there as we transitioned into digital editing. It was also like everything happened over fax. And I don't remember specifically. I mean, we had computers, but like email and emailing your coworkers emerged as I was starting. So like,
That's
I don't know what my
insane,
point
right?
is. It was an interesting time to be starting there. So, and then to answer your question, what does a PA do? I mean, at the time, I felt super lucky. It's actually, when people ask me now, like, young people will reach out and be like, how do I get a job in media and how do I get where you are? I always say it's so hard to answer that because cable was this amazing training ground that
Yeah,
doesn't really exist anymore.
yeah.
So when I got to MTV, I don't know, I'm sure you guys do if you remember Leanne Sue. She was the, maybe not, but she was a associate producer at News. And I would go with her. They would stick a camera in my hand and tell me like to figure it out. And I would shoot and she would do the interviews. You're getting like really, really hands-on experience very quickly. I mean, and there's also grunt work that you're doing. Like we would, it was a lot, it's boring, but ad lotting tapes, transcribing interviews, things like that. But for the most part, the LA office was of MTV News was only 5 or 6 people, and we were pretty much out on a video set every single day. It was
Hmm.
also maybe this is more detail than you want, but it was before the days of making the video. So we literally went to almost every sort of major artist music videos and interviewed them and would do like a small news item about that. So sort of to your point, can't believe my luck that I'm getting to do this, and yeah, it really felt like an amazing way to cut your teeth and learn about the business.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I'm sure that you wouldn't want to do any of those jobs again. I'm sure you're glad that you had that experience learning how to do all of that stuff.
It was probably 2 years where she would do the interviews and I would shoot the thing. I never wanted to be a cameraman and I had no interest in that and I don't like technical stuff. But it's pretty great to have that skill to have learned that and been kind of in those kind of environments. I don't know, you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you. Like famously, we went to the video set of Are You That Somebody? And we did an interview with Aaliyah for that video, and I didn't know I was young and green, and I didn't know that you can't take somebody with a dark complexion and put them on a light background. The camera can't see them; their face will disappear. So I did this big long interview with Aaliyah, and then we got back to the office, and it was unusable. It's not like she died right after, but I remember when she died, people being like, "Oh yeah, we had this big long interview that you screwed up." And anyways, that's my
Oh, man.
that's my. I
When
mean,
you were covering video shoots before making the videos, were there other outlets doing that, or was MTV really the first outlet that was, interviewing artists at their video shoots?
my recollection is we were the only ones there. I'm sure that if there was like a certain echelon of artists that maybe like an Entertainment Tonight would try to be there, but for the most part, no, I think it was us. And, they were pretty excited that we showed up. We would hang out on set, we would do an interview and, have all this B-roll of them making the video, which I think nobody had ever done before.
Yeah.
Can you imagine still having, I mean, well, I guess you kind of do because you do a lot of docs with artists, but having that access to talent so readily and so easily, I mean, and to be able to just sort of film everything that's happening and to have them sign one of our MTV releases that says you give us the rights to everything forever in perpetuity in any medium now invented or in the future. And they were like, sure, I'll sign it, and you could use anything you wanted to. I mean, that was pretty amazing.
It is amazing. It's amazing now because to your point, like, yeah, we do documentaries and things, but the amount of sort of back and forth wrangling around releases is different. Back in the day, I think because it was this amazing opportunity to get yourself seen, to get your artist seen, everybody wanted that. It is actually interesting now because I think you hear from people in music all the time, like these outlets don't exist anymore, so there's nowhere to take young artists to, cut their teeth and be interviewed in a sort of a safe-ish environment.
So interesting. Obviously, before social media, so now artists can do everything by themselves. Sometimes they have bigger followings than the platforms that are interviewing them. It's a different
Yeah, I
world.
think like the thing about working in news at that time, pre-social media, was they didn't have any other way to sort of get across their personality, that they're, any of the sort of things that you might learn from them from an off-the-cuff casual interview. Now they have a direct line. If you're an artist with 80 million followers, to your point, you have way more reach than MTV social does. It's not that theirs aren't impressive, they are, but like, yeah, for sure. You don't need that anymore. But it used to be like there's no real way to speak direct to the audience, so this is the closest I can get to.
Yeah. Also, what I loved working in programming was to have the insight into new shows before they were greenlit. And, you know, News created some incredible programming, some specials, right? True Life. And I think Diary came from News. And were you in any of those brainstorming meetings as those ideas were being flushed out? Because making the video and the concept of shooting a video and releasing it as short form content is a no-brainer for every artist, but we were the first ones to kind of do it.
Yeah, I'm trying to reflect. True Life existed when I got to MTV, because actually when I was an intern, I specifically remember being sent to the set of True Life, I'm a Porn Star, which is a fun one because it never aired on MTV. It was too racy and it went to Showtime, I think, or something like that. But as a 19-year-old kid from Canada, I was like, I don't know where I am and I cannot believe that I'm standing on a porn set. But that being said, yeah, I mean, no, you're totally right. Being in LA was interesting in those early years because it was like when all of this sort of development was starting. And I remember like being in and around like the team down the hall as they were sort of coming up with the idea of the Osbournes. You know, it was born out of, I believe, it was born out of their Cribs episode.
Yeah.
I think some of those shows predate me. When I moved to New York, I was working in development. So then it was really like, oh, the whole job was about trying to sit down and think, okay, using the access that News has, what are News programming extensions that feel that they fit the brand, and they, you know, because we were trying to not do things that were more programming, they had to feel kind of like they fit under the News banner. So it was a lot of, you know, trying to brainstorm that. But Jesse Ignatovich created Diary. I don't remember what it was born out of, but it's iconic, certainly.
When you were working in development, were you trying to create one-offs for a particular artist or a franchise umbrella so you could, you know, plug in a series?
Yeah, I mean, it was both.
Yeah.
The goal, like we did, you know, MTV used to have all these theme weeks, so they'd have like a back to school week and they'd be like, what could you guys do? And I remember specifically for that, we pitched something called When I Was 17. We did it and it never went anywhere. We just did one episode. And then 9 years later or 8 years later, somebody came along and was like, hey, remember that? And then we brought it back. And I think we did, I don't know, 100 episodes or something. But yeah, but the original development was like, yes, was a little bit of that. And it definitely is in the News. You're spot on, which is in the News realm. It's a little bit of like, what's special we could do around this. I actually, there's a video of Britney Spears that goes viral all the time, and it's Britney sitting watching a old school TV with a big tape deck, and there are people talking about her VMA performance, you know, where she wore like the nude bodysuit, and they're criticizing her and she's reacting to it. And the meme that goes is like she's the sort of her reacting. But I have a recollection of like after that VMAs being in a brainstorm, which was like, okay, what do we do now? And the pitch was, okay, we're going to do a special. We're going to do a 30-minute special that looks at sort of the way in which these young pop stars are being sexualized really quickly, like Britney, Christina, whomever else at the time, the way they had gone from being a little bit sort of squeaky clean in their first iteration and then coming back sexier. So we did a special called When Sex Goes Pop. And it's interesting now, because now I reflect on it and I'm like, that's terrible. Like we were slut shaming these girls who were actually just making really cool career moves and doing the right thing. But, you know, I'm not faulting MTV nor anybody else, but it was just interesting. It's interesting now to reflect on those things because it was really just sitting and trying to brainstorm, how do we capitalize on this moment? You know, Britney had this massive viral moment because she pulled off her suit and was seemingly naked. How do we build programming around that? How do we capitalize on it? And, you know, and then also it's really cool. I mean, you didn't ask this, but it's really cool in general to reflect back on certain pop culture moments and be like, oh, I was right there. Like my job was to iterate and brainstorm around this big pop culture moment that now like you see go viral and young people are talking about. And you're like, oh, wow. First of all, I feel old. But second of all, like, oh, that's cool that I got to, pretty cool that I got to be close to that.
News was always known for breaking stories about artists and the music business. Was there one particular story that you can recall that you had the scoop before it was announced, like publicly, online, or in any traditional media? If you can speak
Yeah.
to like a story, or no, what was the reaction to MTV News breaking that story?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this, and my memory is like a sieve. So I was trying to think about like what are the things. The thing that comes to mind for me is when Michael Jackson died. I was at the time, I think I was a supervising producer at News, and we got an incoming. We didn't break the news that he died, but we got an incoming call from CBS News, who were corporate cousins at the time, saying, "We're hearing this rumor. Are you guys hearing it?" And I was like, oh my God, I don't know. But this feels big and kind of outside my pay grade. And what am I supposed to do here? And I remember the producer at CBS being like, oh, okay, we have this verification, but we need 2 verifications to go with this. And when are you guys going to publish the news? And I was like, well, I don't want to be responsible for being wrong and publishing that Michael Jackson has died.
Right.
And Dave Sorelnik was my boss at the time. And I was trying to get a hold of him, and I called his cell phone. In my mind, I called his cell phone like 50 times, and I wasn't getting through. And then finally, he called me back and was like, I'm in a test screening. What do you need? And I was like, well, we're hearing Michael Jackson's dead. And then it was this like rush of like, oh, this is what we have to do, and this is how we have to verify, and this is how we have to get it out there. And then it's not exactly what you asked, but what I think we felt really proud of was that we jumped to it. We really quickly, like, I don't remember the exact time, but within an hour or two, we're live on MTV, and we went live the entire day from the TRL studio with experts and guests coming through, because it was such a big, monumental news story for young people. And I think we felt really proud about like being able to react in real time and bring this story to music fans who were, obviously devastated. I feel the same way around Whitney Houston. I think I remember specifically, like, we were in LA for the Grammys, this news broke, and it was like, okay, what are we going to do? And I don't actually remember if we went live, but I know that I was responsible for crashing like an hour-long special that we put on air like the next day or 2 days later. And it's not exactly breaking news, but it is this thing which feels like you've been really entrusted with this job to sort of take a really difficult thing and help young people synthesize it and react to it and express their emotions. So that's pretty cool. So I always think that like that's one of the things that MTV News was really cool for, was it was there like before I was there, but like to announce that Kurt Cobain had died, or Michael Jackson, or Whitney, or Aaliyah, who I mentioned before, where like, we actually, Aaliyah, I remember specifically also that I was working in LA at MTV News at the time, and I was deep in the valley, and we had pagers at the time, and I got a page, and I was like, I don't have a cell phone. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm getting a page on this thing that never pages. So it must be serious. And then I had to find a payphone, and I called, and they were like, Aaliyah died. How soon can you be at the office? And I was like, okay. This is pre-Uber too, so I had to get a taxi and get myself to Santa Monica, because we were crashing a news item, a package about this plane crash. And because we were 3 hours behind, we were awake.
Oh, nice. I remember I was in the music team, and we were, for any of these events, once everything was confirmed, we would change all the music video programming, and we could do that pretty instantly. So we would all have laptops at home, and we would have access to the program that would switch, and it would literally override whatever was on air. So we would, make playlists and themes, and then we would have this really basic banner that we would have access to as well. So we would create messaging and add that to this log. And yeah, so that was a proud moment for me to be able to put those together. And also the main programming team, really easy for us to access all of the library content and create some great programming that can shine some light into that artist's history and around news and music videos. So we could really, at a drop of a hat, create this amazing programming that I don't know if other networks had the library anyway.
So
the library, or sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think what you're saying is exactly right. Like I also remember very specifically there was a breaking news ticker, which we could activate and we could call like the programming and get it going. But then it was a big responsibility because you were suddenly going to be, putting Michael Jackson dead at, I don't remember how old, on screen in the middle of the day, and then to your point, we could move quickly, but we would only move so quickly. So programming would jump in and do music videos while we very quickly were like, okay, we can be live by this time. To the question of breaking news, I mean, I think the print journalists at MTV were breaking news all the time, but we
Right.
were like, as TV people, it was pretty exciting to be able to sort of be really quickly bringing stories of import to the audience. I mean, nobody wants to be reporting that somebody died, but certainly if they do, you feel like a real responsibility to be doing it effectively, to be doing it sensitively, and to be effectively celebrating somebody's legacy.
How many days were you guys reporting on Michael Jackson's death? I would think that it would be multiple days because the story just kept happening almost.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't remember, but I would say for sure for weeks we were continuing to be reporting all the time because there was updates on cause of death, but also more and more and more people reactions and
People wanted to speak
people.
out,
Yeah,
friends and other musicians and people that were inspired by his music wanted to reach out. And
exactly.
I think on the back end, a lot of things at that time were above my pay grade, but I think everything ran so smoothly and every department worked together. And I don't recall any, backlash or internal disagreements. It's just like at that time, and we've talked about that period of time, had some amazing people working there. I just feel like everyone was working together so well for this particular event, but just in general.
Yeah, and I think it came from the top. It was, Jeannie Kiedis in press and Dave in news and Tom in music and Tina Exaros in marketing. All the senior execs seemed to really work together and had a unified vision of what the channel could and should be. And then they allowed the people working under them to also express their visions and to do the best job that they could do too.
Working somewhere 20 years is a very long time, and there's lots of different regimes and changes and things. But I think certainly, like at the best moments, that's exactly what it was everybody working together towards a really common goal. And some of the people you mentioned, like I remember being on Choose or Lose things or this Michael Jackson thing or things like this, where all of those people were just so committed to the idea that we had a responsibility to communicate to young people in a way that nobody else was doing, that people weren't speaking to them directly about going out and voting or speaking to them directly about how to navigate this tragedy. So yeah, it felt like a responsibility, and it felt like everybody sort of then banded together to sort of feel like they were part of doing this the right way.
So let's move into live events.
Sure.
MTV's live events were usually groundbreaking and newsworthy. I mean, we just talked about Britney and stripping off her clothes on a performance. And from a production standpoint, I'm sure that they were a huge beast to produce. Was there one show or segment within a show that you look back on and go, that was amazing. I can't believe we pulled it off. And was there one that was a challenge to make happen?
Yeah, but yes, for sure. Do you specifically want to know about MTV or any
You
network?
can any of your time there. Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely VMA stories, but the VMAs feel so iconic that, like, a lot of the stories have been told. When at a certain point in my career, I was asked to go to Logo and work across multiple brands. And when I went to Logo, I I have a special, like, warm spot in my heart for a show called Trailblazers that we did there, and specifically that we were the taping of the show. I don't remember the days, but say the taping on the show was on a Sunday, and the Pulse shooting had happened on a Saturday or a
Right.
Friday.
Right.
And so we were able to very quickly respond, and we did this big tribute. We had already booked Rachel Platten to perform, but then we had her switch and perform Fight Song, and we did this thing, and it felt very meaningful. So when I hear that question, that's one thing that comes to mind. But I also think for years I was responsible for the VMA red carpet. So we used to go to great length to create these really big, iconic moments. And the ones that sort of came off, whether that's like boat arrivals or whether that's like, these huge, like Taylor Swift arriving in a four-strand carriage or whatever, or Lady Gaga arriving with servicemen to talk about Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Like those kind of moments, you feel really excited about and proud of. And then in terms of bad ones, I have a whole lot. But the thing that I was thinking more than anything is, I think it's 2005. The VMAs were in Miami, and the Hurricane Katrina was
yeah.
the early stage of Hurricane Katrina before it hit Louisiana was coming through. And I'd never been in the hot seat and been the producer of record for a live show. And the pre-show, Jim Frankel was producing, but they had come to me and been like, you can produce the post-show. And I was like really nervous and excited and whatever. But there was a hurricane, so we never rehearsed. And then the show went off. It was great. The hurricane had moved on at this point. The show in Miami was fantastic. And then afterwards, we go live from this truck, and literally just anything that could go wrong did. I was in Kurt Loder's ear, and he got annoyed, and like I think on air was like, "Stop talking in my ear." The director yelled at me and was like, "You don't know what you're doing," and I was like, "I'm never doing this again." And I think I was probably in live TV jail for several years, but then eventually they let me try it again.
So for our
But I
viewers,
blamed the hurricane. But yeah.
For our viewers and listeners, all these moments, none of them were scripted, right? Artists, it's just what happened at the moment, right? All of these big cultural moments. It wasn't a team on the back end that was forcing these.
Well, it depends what you mean. Like, certainly, like if you're on a live red carpet, you can't really plan what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The VMAs themselves is interesting because you can plan it, and it is planned, and they know Britney's going to kiss Madonna going in. But then it's also like, that's an interesting thing of like, how do you react to that afterwards, and how do you sort of run with it? But yeah, of course. I mean, some of it is all organic and it's just happening. Somebody was talking to me the other day about Nicki Minaj going off on Miley Cyrus at the VMAs, like live on TV. I can't speak for everyone, but I assume as a programmer, that's your dream. That's what you want to happen.
Yeah.
Is that like an unexpected moment happens and becomes culture shifting.
Maybe it was Nicki's publicist before was like, we need some more stories out of this show.
Maybe. Miley was hosting and Nicki won an award and then chose that moment to like go after her for something she'd said in the press that was probably relatively innocuous, but it was like, I don't know, she said something like, "What's good, Miley?" I remember that being like, oh, you both can plan things and then you hope for the things that you cannot plan.
Right. Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're going to ask you some quick fire questions, get to know Ryan. What was your first concert?
In life?
Yeah. As a little, young Canadian Ryan.
So I think the answer is, I sometimes answer different ways, but I think the answer is that my brother, when I went away to like camp, and when I came back, my brother, was excited and took me to see Foreigner.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
So that's a long time ago, but yeah, I think so. I also remember my parents taking me to Stevie Wonder, which is maybe a better answer, but Foreigner feels more
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stevie as well. Yeah. What was the first album you bought or were given as a gift?
Well, also two answers. I remember specifically, I was like 13 and I had enough money to go out and buy like a little boom box. It came with a free version of the California Raisin CD. That was free. But I also have a very vivid memory of skipping school with a bunch of people to go buy Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, the Guns N' Roses album. I don't know how old I was, but
maybe like I was in the 7th or 8th grade.
Amazing.
I also remember buying, I take it back, I remember buying specifically the cassette tape of Whitney Houston's, I think it's called Whitney Houston, the first album, and that feeling like a really, like, I don't know, a big
Yeah.
deal.
I had a few
You
good
saving
ones,
up my
but I
own.
loved when the Now compilations came out
Yeah.
and the double cassettes. Those were really exciting. I think I just owned all of them.
I had a real problem with Columbia House where I would sign up for the 12 free CDs. Your goal was to cancel before you actually had to pay for anything. But I was disorganized and young, so then all of these CDs would start coming, and I would be like, oh, now I owe Columbia House money. But yes, but that makes me think of now that's what I call music, which I also remember buying because you
get the best of everything. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's like now it's like an iTunes playlist.
So
exactly.
my Columbia House recollection is that it was for cassette tapes. It
Oh,
wasn't
really?
even CDs yet. So
Yeah, well, I think we're probably close in age. I probably had both, but in my head, I'm seeing the little square box that would come, and
Mhm.
when the box would arrive, I would be like, "Fuck, I was supposed to cancel. I don't want this."
Do you have a piece, and what's your favorite MTV swag memorabilia?
That's a really good question. Well, I used to always have in my office, I don't right now. I used to have a news flag that, like the little mic
The
flags that
microphone cube?
the microphone cube, yes, thank you. And it was a big deal because they made a big deal of the fact that they were expensive and you could not have them. And when I moved from LA to New York and I packed up my apartment in LA, there were like 8 in my apartment. And I was convinced at the time I was going to get fired for that. But that's not exactly swag. What's the best swag? Well, first of all, I don't know if anybody on your podcast has talked about this, but the free suitcase they gave. Do you remember one year it was a Christmas
Everybody has talked about that. Yes.
The duffel bag on wheels,
Yeah.
the soft one. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that
I thought
bag.
I heard somebody, I'm cheating a little bit. I think I heard somebody talk about it. But that I remember being such a big deal because I used that luggage for decades. And actually, once I was traveling maybe it was the VMAs, I was traveling and I went home with somebody else's bag.
I was going to say, I think Perry mentioned you're waiting by the luggage belt, and there's
Everyone was
100
on the same
bags.
flight, and 30 of these bags are going through the carousel. Like, which one is mine? I don't know.
Yeah, totally, exactly.
I have a collection of watches that don't work.
Oh yeah,
And the VMA giant
Sorry,
Pez.
Giant Pez?
Yeah, which is right here.
That's cool. You know what I have that I think is really cool, actually? Somebody was in my house the other day and pointed it up. Yes, I remember that giant Pez Moon Man. That's
I don't know
cool.
how I managed to get it, but I think working for Paul in programming, we just used to get so much stuff.
Yeah, everybody wanted to butter you up.
Yeah.
What I was going to say I have, and actually I saw this week is the 10th anniversary, but I have the Jeremy Scott Moon Man. There was a year that they did it, and it was like a kind of rainbow. They redesigned it a couple of years in a row. They did a Cos Moon Man one year, and they did a Jeremy Scott Moon Man another year. So I have that, which I think is pretty cool. I don't swag wise. I mean, a lot of swag. Have you ever noticed there's a Facebook group that's like I worked at MTV when it was cool?
We are
like
posting on that, yeah.
We post there,
yeah. And they push through that feed a lot of like swag where you're like, oh my goodness, somebody is a much better collector than I am. I should have saved all this stuff.
What about all of your red carpet and all access lanyards? Do you have all those?
Yes. No, you're totally. I used to on the back of my door have like a thick, like hundreds deep, and I don't know why I'm an idiot, but at some point I was like Marie Kondoing and got rid of them. And I know all these people who like did a collage and built a thing. I should have kept them all. I regret it. I mean, so impressed with the people who have every single one.
Yeah, I've got I just have them in a big.
Wow.
But each show, you would have about 6.
Yeah,
it
totally.
was crazy.
Yeah, like just give you one and initiate, red carpet, backstage, whatever, instead of 6 laminates on one.
Well, the funniest thing too is once the show got started, everybody was everywhere.
It didn't matter.
It didn't really matter. Like you just had to get where you needed to
As long
go.
as you
And
had a headset on, you looked
yeah,
important to be able to
yeah,
walk wherever you wanted.
That's
yeah.
what I was going to say. Work, you have to walk with purpose. But
Yeah.
I have a real recollection of with those shows being like, you know, really feeling like you'd arrived or you'd sort of made it at MTV if you got a certain level of pass.
Felt good.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah, like, I mean, and I'm sure working the music team, you all got, you know, you get better passes, but we were always like a little bit of a stepchild and we were like, ooh, I want the credential where I can go into rehearsals or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite music video from your time at MTV? Not
A
that you
favorite,
necessarily worked on, like
I
covered,
see the one that
but
I
just
watched, a
one
favorite.
that was.
That is a big question. A favorite music video from my time at MTV. You didn't ask this, but I will answer that. I think when when I was in LA, we did a lot with Eminem, and I remember being on the set of a bunch of his music videos and being like, "Oh, this is really cool. This person is going to be massive." What's your answer?
I mean, a lot of artists that I love don't have great videos, but we've talked about this so much. I feel like on repeat, but the Misses and the Busters, they were very iconic for their style that are still being used and abbreviated today, right?
Yeah. So I like that answer, and then I will tell you that yes, I don't. It wasn't the question, but my favorite, one of the best shoots I ever went on, one of the coolest things I think when I was young, like my early 20s, was we went to the set of Missy Elliott's "She's a Bitch," and if you remember, she like emerges in this black suit out of the water, and we were there when that was happening, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. So there, I'm going to say that one.
You know, I actually have never been on a music video set.
Really?
Yeah, no. I
Now
just,
you got a bucket list item.
yeah, well, I don't know what's going to happen now, but
I was an extra on the Kiss video for Strutter, is it? Or I forget the name of that song, but it was shot in a high school in LA. And I was working in the industry. I don't know how I got there, but I was a love interest number 2.
Good. That's awesome. I've not appeared in any, but we were on the set of a
But you're
lot of
credited.
them. I will tell you though, Perry, it's really boring. It's like being on any set where
I can imagine. Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
lot of standing around
Waiting around.
waiting, but you know, with some fun things sprinkled in between. I don't know why. Maybe because she's winning the Video Vanguard this year. But I also just recall being on the set of Heartbreaker for Mariah Carey and being like, "Oh, this is cool. Like this is going to be pop culture iconography that I'm, you know."
It's a great video.
And she was playing, you know, her alter ego and fighting with
Right.
herself. So cool to see
Yeah,
it.
yeah. That was
It
a
was,
great
it
video.
was, it, I think it was the first time that she actually had fun in a video. Like
Yeah.
everything else just felt sort of like, I got to do a video for this song and whatever. But I think that's when she also started to take more charge of her career and her image, and, you know, everything else was sort of about her brand at that point.
Totally.
So,
Before that, it had been like looking beautiful in like a field singing. Yeah. As opposed
right.
to having a good time.
Well, and I think it was also, you know, she'd probably just gotten divorced from Tommy and, you know, was sort of having more fun. I mean, and she was a young girl. It wasn't like she was in her 30s. She was like in her early 20s at that time. So,
Yeah. I don't know. I don't mean to ask the questions, but one of the things that like to the point when I got to MTV, one of the like, you know, she was young, and I remember I was like a PA or AP on an interview that John Norris did with Mariah, and I like when we got in the room before the cameras were rolling and she was just talking to him like a real person, and like they were, you know, gossiping and having a good time, and I was like, oh, this is something I never would have dreamed of like being in the room for or whatever.
When you're on the set of music videos and you see them on TV, are you ever amazed by how they come out, or you're not really thinking about that because you're just worrying about the B-roll on set?
I think that's spot on. There's both cases. There are cases where you're like, this is going to be so cool, and you see the video and you're like, eh. And then there are ones where you're like, oh, I don't know what they're doing here, and later you're like, this is so cool. I can't believe they made this. I remember being on set for like the Puffy Mace videos, which like, I mean, present stuff notwithstanding, were really iconic at the time.
Any behind the scenes stories from those video shoots? Were you hanging out with Puffy Offset too?
No,
No
I
comment.
wasn't. I was not invited to a freak off, if that's what you're asking. No, I'm like shy. I didn't make friends with artists, but what I think in retrospect is so interesting is that we didn't, but the people who did, like, and would then go and hang out after and like develop relationships, in retrospect makes so much sense, because to your point about Mariah or other people, they're the same age. They're just, people starting out in their careers. But I think, at least for me, I was like this, keeping them at arm's length.
Yeah, I think I was the same way. First of all, I don't think I ever had a real opportunity to be friends with an artist. I was never around somebody enough times to having some kind of a outside relationship with them. And I just would never think to do it either. I mean, it's just not who I am. I mean, my job is to do my job and not to be buddy with somebody that I'm working with on the talent side.
Yeah. That being said, and probably maybe I shouldn't say this, but famously, people from the music department married artists. So
They did.
that's impressive.
Unfortunately, Susan Natoli didn't get to, which is her big regret about working at MTV.
Was her dream that she did. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you love music and you go and get one of these jobs, yeah, that's the brass ring, is like,
Or the gold ring.
the gold ring. Yes. Thank you.
Post MTV, you pivoted to development and production at Live Nation. I think most folks think of Live Nation as a concert promoter, ticket seller. So what is your role at the company, and what are some of the productions that you've worked on?
Sure. So, correct. Live Nation is predominantly a concert promoter and a live event company. But about 10 years ago, they launched a production division, largely so that they could partner with artists on TV and film projects they wanted to make. And it started out with concert films. It quickly branched into documentaries. The Live Nation Studios, the division I work with, they made Lady Gaga, 5'2". They made Imagine Dragons, Believer. We made Love Lizzo, a whole bunch of music documentaries. So a lot of music documentary. And then we branched into scripted. We were producers on The Star Is Born, and we make music-based TV and film. So we have a movie premiering at TIFF in 2 weeks that's with Green Day. We have another movie that is just about to finish that set at Rolling Loud, the hip hop festival. So it's basically like, we're creating content around Live Nation's IP. So whether that's concert tours, festivals, or relationships with artists. And it's been a really cool job. And it's actually like, I feel really lucky because I kind of feel like I stepped in it, because you leave MTV and it's actually very hard to be working in the intersection of content and music, because there aren't that many people that are doing it.
Right.
So yeah, I feel very lucky, and that's cool. And it's also cool because I spent 20 years doing unscripted, but now I'm learning the scripted business as well.
Some of these are theatrical releases, obviously, when you talk about Star Is Born, but others could be like a streaming release on Apple, or right?
Yeah, exactly. So we did Moon Age Daydream. There's the David Bowie documentary, which was theatrical and then went to HBO. Lady Gaga 5'2" was Netflix. We have a bunch of documentaries that are finished now that, like, some are going theatrical, but some are going straight to a streamer. And it really all depends. Both. I mean, that's sort of like becomes an economic thing, which is basically, what if you get a big offer from a streamer, then maybe you take it. If you don't, then maybe you find some other route to release the movie and make sure it finds an audience.
Right. I mean, now with the Apple glasses, it's almost a better visual experience there than seeing it in the cinema.
Yeah, well, that's super interesting, which is like also like concert films, like now,
Yeah.
because there was a period of time where it was sort of like YouTube has sort of killed that kind of notion, because you don't need to go to a theater or to a streamer to watch them. But now there's all this new technology that makes it so cool that it feels like you're there. And certainly,
do you have to shoot differently with that vision of, it might get picked up by Apple and, the headset?
I mean, I haven't done anything for VR.
Okay.
But
Yeah, yeah.
yes, but we're just like, for those things now, we're trying to as cinematic as possible. So we're generally shooting for IMAX and the biggest possible screen to make it, a big, sexy visual. And I would like to shoot those things. It's really interesting. I took a pitch from that, and it's like when I was at MTV, there was all this idea of like trick cameras that could be on stage, so you could choose who you were looking at. If a band was performing, you could move the camera angles, which is fun and a novelty. But now, to your point, the technology has moved to the point where it feels so immersive that it's cool.
And obviously, apart from this technology that's forever changing, and I'm sure you're always up on what you can do, you have a certain skill set and what was in your DNA when you were at MTV for so long. You see certain traits in your role now and after you left Viacom.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's twofold. One, like storytelling is kind of a thing that, whether it's doing a 2-minute news package or whether it's making a feature film, you're still trying to tell a story, and that those skills kind of transfer. But also, I have this thing where I think like producing on any level is just like whack-a-mole, fixing problems, and it's your ability to sort of like quickly respond and fix a problem and respond to that problem. It's kind of, live TV is a great training ground, because if you can sort of live through 2 hours of live and retain your composure and keep your stomach, then you can probably do anything. And so I don't do it anymore. I haven't done it in years, despite working at a live company. But being in the live truck and doing those live shows really feels like you kind of learn that, like, hey, these skills travel anywhere. And as long as you sort of are decisive and make quick decisions and think things through, then you can do anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the question you answered, but you asked, but that's my answer.
I will take it. Love it. One final question for you, and we'll wrap it up. Do you have a New York, or as you're in LA, music venue, a favorite venue?
And what was the best show you saw?
Well, okay, so I don't know the favorite venue. I have to think about, but the best show I ever saw, there used to be a club in LA called the Key Club, and somebody invited me to see Key Club. Yeah, but I don't think it's there anymore or what it was.
Right.
But the Key Club, and somebody invited me to see Prince at the Key Club. So it was like seeing Prince with 500 people. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And I remember after that just always being like, who is going to invite me to one of these secret shows to be in, with 500 people in the room seeing, someone on that level. But yeah, and he was so good, and it went on for so long, and it was, so that in my head is the best show I ever went to.
I remember the Key Club.
I don't think the Key Club is my favorite venue I've ever been at.
We had a good answer from Graham James, which is our next host, and he said being at a award show but having access to the rehearsal with 20 people in a massive stadium arena setting to see those. So
totally. I have a recollection of being in the room for the rehearsal for Miley Cyrus's big
Wrecking Ball.
We Can't Stop with the reason I bring it up is because, like, I thought it was so cool. I was like, this is awesome. She sounds amazing. But also I sat there thinking this is cool, and I had no idea that it was going to become something. Like, I didn't think to myself, oh, this is so controversial, or she's doing anything wild. I was just like, oh, this is cool. But
you didn't know, you didn't think it at the time, like, this is a news story in and of itself.
Yeah, no, not at all. I just was kind of like, oh, this is fun that I get to be in this room and see this, Disney star sort of emerge as a pop star. And wow, she's super talented. But I didn't think this is going to be culture breaking.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's totally true. I mean, that's what I'm saying about credentials. If you were on the music team, for instance, you could be in every rehearsal, or there would be these weird ones where they were blocked out and you couldn't go in, and you try to find a way in.
Amazing
times.
I
don't know if I was ever in many rehearsals. I guess I just didn't have the right credential.
Well, or you were working too hard.
I was probably working too hard. Yes.
Yeah.
I was hanging out with Pink in her trailer.
Oh, well, perfect. That sounds like fun.
So, well, thank you, Ryan, for taking the time to speak with us.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. I had a great time. I always like reminiscing, and as I say, some people have these encyclopedic memories and remember everything, and I feel like my whole time at MTV is like a blur. So it's fun to sort of try to take the moment to think about it.
Do you
So I
think we
appreciate
covered
that.
the other 15 years that you don't normally talk about?
I think we did. I think we did a good job.
Okay,
We
good.
did not only talk about my time in LA, we talked about the whole thing. We
Excellent.
talked about award shows. Yes. So yes, thank you for forcing me out of my comfort zone.
All right, man. It was really
Nice
great
to see you
catching up.
both. Hopefully I'll
We
see you
appreciate
soon.
it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And please remember to like, share, and rate and review.
And subscribe if you didn't say that.
Subscribe.
See ya.
Bye.